Hi, this is Rizwan, and you are watching the Indian Weekender. As a part of our Coping with COVID series, today we talk about the impact of business closures on early childhood centers across New Zealand. Back in April and May this year, when we were in the first phase of COVID with alert level 4 and 3 lockdowns, schools, retails, and most businesses had pulled down their shutters for weeks. Now, in the second wave, Auckland is in alert level 3 for almost 3 weeks now, and alert level 2 in the rest of New Zealand. In these times, how has the early childhood centers fared? What challenges it has been facing and what they will be facing in the coming days? Talking both from the business perspective and the confidence in parents to send their children to childcare centers. What precautions can and have been taken to operate businesses in the new model of social distancing and constant self sanitization? Today, we talk to Mr. Rrahul Dosshi, founder and managing director of Rainbow Corner, who has 10 operating centers across New Zealand and 6 more in the pipeline. Hi, Mr. Doshi, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, Rizwan. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So, to start off this interview, what do you think are the impacts of this lockdown on early childhood centers, being the expert in your industry yourself?
I think, in my opinion, Rizwan, we need to stretch this a touch more and not just limit it to just childcare centers as well, because in-home care also has been a big ratchet in providing care for the sector as well during these uncertain times. But to answer your question specifically, it has been a challenging time for all of us in every aspect that one can think of.
According to you, what has been the major blow to the industry? I mean, how do you think it can be balanced and recuperated in the coming days?
I think the biggest fear is anxiety with parents, with staff, and even for us as businesses to get some form of certainty as to where all this leading to and how far, how long. So these sort of questions do pop up. Parents look for certainties if the children are going to be safe when they send to any of our services across the country. And if the staff who are coming as well, they have their own concerns, whether we as employers would be fair to them, they would be paid, they would not be paid, they would have a job. Millions of questions.
Right. In the first level of lockdown, did you host children of essential workers at your centers, not just in Auckland but throughout New Zealand? Were your centers open for essential workers' children?
Right. So during the lockdown, which is your level 4, at that time, Pro's in-home childcare was one of the agencies contracted by the government to provide care to the essential workers. So we worked pretty hard in the background, even before the lockdown was announced. We were proactive as an organization. We had put together some risk matrices, lots of health and safety precautions in place, posters, checklists, all that sort of stuff beforehand. So come the day when the announcement was officially made, the entire pool of give or take 800 people swung into action, and within a space of, I would say, 5 to 6 days, we matched about 550 children.
So how did you manage to connect with the parents of so many students? I mean, approx more than 500 students, plus giving or upskilling your employees, your teachers who are there managing on the ground. So how easy or difficult was it, and what challenges did you face? If you could just enumerate them.
Try and break this down. So let me talk about this from a operational perspective. So as a group, we put together all those health matrices, the risk matrices, health and safety checklists. We had an in-house pandemic webinar that we had developed as well. So all staff were actually trained well in time before we hit the 24th March, I think it was. Wasn't it as a date from memory now? So we were trained. So the staff got trained in that. So they had a good anticipation of what they're getting into. And then we worked with some key organizations, let's say DHBs, rest homes, bigger brands like Frontiera, etc. So they came to us straight away as soon as they knew that Pause is one of the biggest stakeholders here. So we went out, started matching families. Guys were working from what 7 in the morning till 11 midnight, whatever we could carry on, just to make sure that the essential workers were given that peace of mind that they could go back to work, look after us as citizens of the country while we carried on helping the children.
Wow. So you mean to say that during that time when I mean almost everything was closed around the country, your staff or childcare centers who were holding the who were hosting the children of essential workers, so they were working from early in the morning till midnight, and even I mean in that kind of 18-hour cycle.
So it was a pretty challenging time for us as a team to even put together policies and procedures on the go. Everything was a changing landscape every few hours. New rules coming out, new expectations coming out. But a baseline was good to work with. So we had that baseline created. But anything after that was interesting times.
Right. When it comes to the employees or the people who were the ground staff who were looking after the children, so did were there any external parties who, via digital medium or whatever medium possible, were they trained properly to take such precautions, especially for the kids, because they're around say 20 to 30 kids in the playground or in that childcare center, and how they will have to be managed. So did you get any kind of external training yourself, or how did you manage that?
So to clarify that stand, within the lockdown, it was only the in-home childcare providers that were granted the exemption by the government to operate. So the centres were not allowed to operate in level 4. It was only in level 3 that all our childcare centres came live as well. And answering your question specifically, was one. Uh, the group itself has its training arm as well. So we are a category 1 PTE as well, and also we have a professional development arm as well. So there's more than enough horsepower internally to develop and also deliver at the same time. So that's the strength of the organization as a team.
So right now we are in alert level 3 in Auckland, and at level 2 in the rest of New Zealand. So how are you managing your your centers now? I mean, in terms of both occupancy, how many people are coming in, and how are you managing that business right now? I mean, I'm asking this in terms of your business.
Sure. So when we did all that work during the very first lockdown, we did all that other work that I just described to you. So a lot of that work was actually even used by the ministry to put together some of their documentation. So that gives us a lot of confidence in what we have created works. Again, it was tried and tested. The litmus test was level 4, and we could see it working successfully at that time. People's interests and health and safety was very well looked after. Fast forward now into this current scenario, the procedures have only improvised from day one. The hand washing techniques, the let's consider the scenario of a child procedure now. So we have these little X's put across on the carpets by the teachers, so the children are still separated when they're sitting down on the mat. When the teacher's doing her storytelling session, mat time is what we call it. Then they form nice songs where the children actually feel happy to go out and wash their hands frequently. We do temperature checks as well, so we use the COVID Tracer app. At the entrance, there's sign-in registers for contact tracing. So all these things form a good tight net of safety measures that is practiced every day in and out to safeguard the interests of the children, parents, staff who come on site.
So it is actually important that the parents are confident enough to leave their child or their children over there. And speaking about the confidence, what happens during the class hour, that is all right. But once the children are away and the center is empty, uh, those are there are surfaces which have been touched by which have been on which the children have played during the day and touched several times. So how do you manage to beside make sure that every place, every inch of the ground or the space is sanitized, and then at the end of the day also managing the cost of keeping the things clean?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question you asked, Rizwan, and I'm very happy to share the secrets here as well, because there's no secret.
Earlier that we were speaking, you mentioned specifically about the health and safety protocol that you had to follow, so this also particularly falls in that space.
Oh, it does absolutely, and that's the confidence, as I said, that because we have followed those practices, and to answer your again question quite specifically, as a part of the checklist that we have now, daily cleaning checklists, that the staff routinely clean the hard surfaces as a part of their daily chores, which was not the case before we came into COVID. So we have specific chemicals, approved ones that we use, say for children, etc. So they keep doing that all through the day. At the end of the day, again, within level three, the cleaners come in, they do the checks again, they sanitize the place, deep cleaning as required as well. Level two has its own requirements as well. So as human beings, I think we function better if there is a thorough checklist. So there's nothing to miss in that space.
Now moving on from keeping the childhood centers clean and green, uh, both for the confidence of the businesses and the parents, what according to you, I mean, moving forward, what according to you will be the challenges for the centers, uh, given that the country will still take at least a year, and this is as per the pandemic experts globally, that it and for New Zealand especially, it will take at least a year when things settle back to the old normal that we used to speak about. So, what challenges do you think in the coming days are you guys as businessmen going to face?
One of the biggest pillars of our business is one is the philanthropic side of my business. We are very much supportive of working with the community, and I'm sure you endorse this thought of mine from the various interactions in the past. So what we have done at the moment is we've had 3 months of no parent fees whatsoever when we are in level three and above. So we've kept that human face where we understand that it is tough for even families to come out and pay fees, but at the same time still maintain their work and life balance. So we do those sort of initiatives are absolutely vital. Even for us from a business perspective and viability wise as well, it's a matter of just hunkering down and keep the additional so-called expenses that the business would have, like travel, for example. There's no travel allowed anymore across all of us unless it was absolutely urgent. Only then there's travel permitted. Only by me, there's one else who would allow that. Otherwise, the regime was slightly different. Entertainment budgets are absolutely slashed. There's no entertainment budget anymore. There's no entertainment to be thinking about. It's about going back to the basics. What do I need? How much of that do I need? And keep it going. Uh, 1 year, I will be lucky and happy if this ends all in a year. But let's see. It's a matter of time.
So, do you think that now that you are making so many budget cuts here and there, especially the entertainment part, which I understand for children that one is one of the most important things, their playtime, their entertainment time. Do you think sharing the burden would be a new thing? What I mean by this is that if say if you're asking X amount of money from your customers and parents, do you think that that will increase uh, to say 10 or 20%, so that you can, because now earlier you had say at a center say 90 students or 90 children, now you might have 60 or 70, so too, but the overheads remain the same, so does the rest of the cost, rent and everything. So do you think that burden will be put on children or the parents of the children going forward?
But in terms of moving forward strategically as well, at the moment we have been assured by the ministry that the funding is guaranteed till end of September. So to move in sync with what the government is doing from their end as well, we are moving in tandem as a group too. So any center that is within level 3 or above, as I said, there's no fees charged. And the next round of our own business decision would depend upon how the funding uh, basically announcements are made too. Because for our sector, funding is the most biggest source of income, and that will be the driving factor. So I don't unfortunately have a bulletproof answer to fix that. But in ethos, I would like to support your thought as you mentioned. But it's a changing landscape. It's too hard to predict even a month down the line as to what's coming.
Yes. So, speaking about the government that you just mentioned, do you think the government has done enough to support businesses such as yours, and so that at the end of this thing, you don't really run out of cash to operate your businesses? Has it been sufficient from their end?
Personal experience, I think this is one of those very first times, and I commend the government actually to interact and work so closely with the sector. The amount of involvement that I've had with the ministry itself has been amazing. They have contacted us very proactively, engaged with us as well for feedback, and listened to the feedback that we've provided in return as well. So that's quite encouraging. And having given us that bit of funding buffer only allows us to keep continue to provide that service for the children and help the parents to go out and continue to work. So it's a two-way approach, if I can re-emphasize what I said before. We have to give up a few of our so-called fees that we charge parents, and in return, the government's looking after the funding part. So we just try and take baby steps and keep crawling. You can't even think of walking, you just keep crawling towards a direction which hopefully is certainty.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rahulji, for speaking with us and giving us information about how this industry is faring, especially during these uncertain times. Thank you so much for your expert opinion on this. And dear viewers, if you have any other questions, if you want to know how businesses are coping up or your businesses is suffering, reach out to us at editor at indianweekender.co.nz. Every evening at 6 o'clock, we are coming up with the Coping with COVID series. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you soon.